So something that I've been curious about when it comes to Jedi Survivor is essentially whether or not we could get any DLC for this game. And today I just wanted to talk over whether or not that is actually a possibility, as well as if it is the case, what I would love to see if we do get DLC down the line. If you guys enjoy Jedi Survivor, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. There is plenty more Survivor content on the way. I'm actually doing a Grandmaster, Purity and Warrior playthrough right here on the channel, so keep your eyes peeled for more. But with that being said, let's get stuck right into it. Now, initially, DLC probably seems like the type of thing that would probably be off the cards with a game like this. They haven't said anything about DLC, and a lot of games that are similar to this type of game, they don't often have DLCs attached. So I think a lot of people, and probably myself included, didn't really suspect a DLC when this game was launching. With that being said, it is definitely a possibility, and the reason that sort of points towards that is that I felt very much the same with Fallen Order, but that did actually get a really big update about 6 months after launch. It actually launched on May the 4th, which is obviously Star Wars Day, and this was completely out of the blue. They didn't announce this was going to be happening or anything. It literally just dropped on the day. They said, hey, there's a new update, go and check it out, and it was actually a really solid update. Now, whether you could call it DLC, I'm not really too sure. I guess technically it was, but it wasn't the typical type of DLC that we're probably used to. There was no additional story content or anything like that. It essentially just added the combat challenges and the battle grid to the game, which was still a really cool addition, and it was a pretty big thing. A lot of people sort of jumped back into the game and were playing quite a bit, and it sort of allowed us to have a bit of freedom with the boss fights, because previously the only way to replay the boss fights was to replay the entire game, whereas with these additions you could go back in and pretty much just replay any boss fight in the arena. Now, like I said, people really enjoyed it, and people were actually very confused why this wasn't in Survivor when it launched. I know for myself it was something I was kind of expecting to see because they'd had it in the previous game, and so I'm definitely wondering if they could do the same thing again, pretty much adding this as DLC down the line. It was already done for the previous game. It was really a pretty big hit, and so it would make absolute sense for them to do this again with Jedi Survivor. Now, with that being said though, like I mentioned, it's not really what you would normally consider a DLC. Usually DLC for a single player game is like additional story content, and it wasn't quite that in Fallen Order. So I would personally love to actually see some story DLC for this game, not just a new mode in terms of those battle grids and stuff like that, especially because even though that would be awesome, we've already seen that in the previous game. It's not really adding anything new, if that makes sense. Now, whether we would get story DLC, I'm not too sure. I don't think that that's the type of thing they would generally do, especially because this game is canon. Obviously, a lot of people will play the base game, but then a lot of people would never get around to the DLC. A lot of people just might have completely moved on from the game and they're not going to actually know the DLC is launched or something like that. And so you're going to get a chunk of people who are sort of missing a part of the story, which essentially means that you have to make the DLC not nearly as important as the actual main storyline for the game, which I guess can make it feel pretty watered down if you don't do it properly. That said though, like I mentioned, I would love to see story DLC for this game. There's so much stuff they could cover, and I think it would be an awesome little buffer for us to get in between Survivor and obviously Jedi 3, which they're now working on. I think it would just be something that is perfectly suited for this game, and I would definitely love to see it. Now, in terms of what I would like to see if we do get a DLC, I'm just going to say right now, spoiler warning, if you haven't finished the game. Firstly, I'm probably not sure why you've even clicked on the video, but in case you haven't finished the game, I would definitely click off the video now, because I'm going to be getting into some of the story beats from Survivor. But something I would love to see when it comes to a story DLC would actually be pretty much a following on of the story of Cal, Merrin and Carter, and essentially their immediate journey right after the ending of the game. It wouldn't need to be anything long and drastic and have huge implications for the game. It could just be something that is a little bit smaller and kind of shows what they get up to right after the game ends. And the good thing about that is that you could do that without it needing to be played, for example. So you could still play the third game, but if you never played the DLC, it wouldn't really matter. It's more just like a bit of additional story that's cool to play, but not really necessary for the story. I think that would be a really sort of easy way for them to add some DLC, just because that is where the story ended. But there are also some more, I guess, alternative DLCs that I would love to see. These are definitely a bit more far-fetched, but I think they could be really cool nonetheless. One that would be really exciting to see would actually be a Sia Junda DLC, where we get to play as her and pretty much focus on what she was up to when Cal wasn't with her. Now, obviously, we got to play her in the main story, so all of that, like the mechanics of playing as Sia, that's already in the game. It's not like they'd have to completely make a new character playable or anything like that. We already got to play as her. So having like a Sia DLC where it's maybe even a bit of a flashback, focusing on her, like setting up the base on Jeddah and stuff like that, I think that would be a really cool thing to focus on. And especially obviously because, once again, spoilers if you haven't played the game, she obviously died in Survivor, so it would be kind of a cool little like final nod to Sia, because obviously obviously she's not going to be in the next game unless there's some sort of flashbacks or something like that, but it would be cool to have sort of like a sending off for her, even though I guess we kind of got that with that final boss fight with Vader. That really was her sending off. But yeah, I think a Seer DLC would be awesome, just to kind of see how she set up the base on Jedi, how she recruited the anchorites and all that kind of thing. That would be a really cool DLC, so I would definitely love to see that. Now, this last one is definitely a bit more of a stretch, but imagine a DLC where we actually get to play as Merrin on her adventures when she was sort of off exploring the galaxy. This is something that a lot of people already really wanted in the base game. A lot of people were saying leading up to the launch of Survivor, oh my god, I really hope we get to play as Merrin. That was like one of the biggest things that I saw talked about, and obviously it didn't end up happening. We did get to play as Seer, but we didn't get to play as Merrin. So having like a Merrin DLC where we actually just go and pretty much play for her for maybe just as simple as like 2 to 3 hours worth of gameplay, and we get to see some of the adventures she was on when she was exploring the galaxy, that would be very, very cool to see. Now, personally, I think this would never happen because unlike what I said with Seer, where that's already in the game, the mechanics for Seer are already done. They would have to pretty much completely start from scratch when it comes to playing as Merrin. And so, yeah, I just think this would probably be too much work, and it does seem like she's still going to be a big part in the third game. So it's not like this is the last chance for them to tell the story. There's a chance maybe we get to play as her in the third game. So I don't think this one would ever happen personally, but it's something cool to think about anyway. Like I said, everyone kind of wanted to be able to play as her in the main game anyway. So I think a lot of people would be very happy if this did happen. Whether we do get DLC or not, I'm not too sure. Personally, I don't really think we will get story DLC. We didn't for the first game, and like I said, it's kind of the type of thing where you have to really market it very, very well, because you probably want, you know, everyone who played Survivor to play the DLC as well. Otherwise, the stuff that you put in the DLC, you can't really like reference it in the future game because a lot of people wouldn't have played it, for example. So I do tend to think that we probably won't get story DLC. Whether we do get something similar to what we got with Fallen Order with like the battle grid and stuff like that, I definitely think that's possible. Whether we do get it, I'm not too sure, but I think it's definitely on the cards, and it's very interesting to think about nonetheless. I'm keen to hear what you guys think though, whether you think we will get any DLC, and if we do, what do you guys think we will get, as well as what would you want to see if you could get any sort of DLC that you want. I'm keen to hear your thoughts, so be sure to leave them down in the comment section. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and may the force be with you always.